Hey, Internet friends. Today, we're just checking in on our Internet friends in California to see how y'all are doing over there. Because a California bill would consider parents' reluctance to affirm their child's gender identification as a breach of health, safety, and welfare in custody disputes. Labeling parents who refuse to acknowledge the gender of their own child as abusive and might lead to the loss of custody. In other words, your children don't belong to you, they're property of the state. This bill, which passed the state assembly, would compel judges to favor the parent who affirms their transgender child's identification. The authors of this bill submitted an amended version this week that expressly defines the health, safety, and welfare of a child to include a parent's affirmation of the child's gender identity, a modification that bill opponents say would open the door to non-affirmation being viewed as abuse. If you want to look it up for yourself, this bill is AB 957, and it's the latest attempt to legalize gender ideology in California. Democrat Senator Scott Weiner, and of course his last name is Weiner. That is perfect. Perfect 10 out of 10 script writing. Yeah, anyway, Scott wrote a similar bill with Assemblywoman Lori Wilson, which required foster parents to affirm trans-identifying children. Weiner proposed making California a haven for out-of-state teens seeking sex modifications without parental approval in 2020. I mean, can you imagine? Do you remember being a child and doing the stupidest stuff ever? Me personally, I wanted a perm in 5th grade. My mom let me get one after months of convincing, but it never took, thank God. Later, I wanted to shop at Hot Topic. Back when it was edgy, she didn't let me shop at Hot Topic, not really. And of course, I wanted a belly button ring when I was like 14 years old, and she never let me get one. It was just the current fad, what was being shown on TV through pop culture, music, movies, television. And now we all look back and cringe at how dumb we looked. Now, being gender nonconforming and whatever else is the current fad, and without intervention, most children will just grow out of it. Look back and pray that everyone in their immediate family and social circle just conveniently forgets that chapter of their life. But no, we have pop culture and politicians who are trying to make this the norm, and surgery and hormone therapy are irreversibly mutilating children's bodies. There is no going back after you become Frankenstein at age 8. These things are irreversible, and children are too young to understand these ramifications. Children should have role models and grown-ups safeguarding them. But instead, we have this trend of mentally ill and cruel abusers who promote and commit these atrocities on children who don't know any better. For example, 51 California Democrats supported AB 957. But the bill's latest amendments were released on Tuesday before its first Senate committee hearing next week. Critics of this bill were concerned over the language and how it could lead to abuse accusations and further down the line lead to loss of custody of your child. And I'm right there with you. This law will be a total proclamation of complete authoritarian control if it's passed and ultimately upheld by the Supreme Court. And I know there will be some comments that will be just dismissive and say, oh, that's California for you. But when I read about things happening in California, I know it's just the testing ground for what they intend to happen everywhere. California is just 5 years ahead of everybody else, and while this particular bill is just for custody disputes, it paves the way for new bills to be introduced, maybe one that would allow child protective services to show up at your house and kidnap your child for misgendering them. I sincerely hope it does not get to that point, but I can read the room here. I get comments that say I'm playing the right-left paradigm when I point out that Democrats are passing certain legislation, creating literal Sodom and Gomorrah conditions, burning down cities. But no, I equally despise Republicans because they do nothing. They allow it to happen. All while collecting an exorbitant amount of taxes claiming to be conservatives. I don't like them either. Our whole system we have here, which is broken. It's a broken system. This system is a kick the can down the road system. Sit and wait until your next election/selection for something to happen or to change. And it won't change ever. Never for the benefit of the citizen, for the benefit of our children. It just won't. Which brings me to the next part of this video. Let's take a look at Scott Weiner. Weiner. What's motivating him?
So proud of Sister Roma and her work in the community, and I'm proud of California for standing strong to support LGBTQ people as our community is under assault in the rest of the country.
Scott Weiner's early life Wikipedia entry is very predictable. He's apparently of no relation to Anthony Weiner, but I wouldn't want to see the browser history on either of their laptops. As recently as last week, Weiner is pictured at the Capitol with drag queens, including a drag queen named Sister Roma, who is a gay pornographer, as in someone who makes adult gay films dressed as a woman at the Capitol, at the state Capitol. Sometimes I just wonder, what would our founding fathers say? What would they say? As a gay man himself, Scott Weiner was co-author of Senate Bill 239, which reduced the crime of intentionally exposing someone to HIV from a felony to a misdemeanor. Great work, Weiner. Weiner himself has been open about his choice to take an anti-HIV drug daily. This drug is called Truvada or PrEP. So one can assume a couple of things about Weiner. He's on the big pharma payroll because he's constantly doing interviews about taking this drug, which is made by Gilead, or you could also assume he has a very active and open sex life. Or you could assume both. Additionally, Governor Newsom signed Bill SB 145 into law in 2020, which Weiner supported. And as a result, automatic sex offender registry rules for some adults who engaged in sex acts with minors were abolished by the statute. This isn't all Weiner has accomplished during his time in the Senate, but this was simply a highlight reel in the face of criticism for his extreme policies targeting children. Scott Weiner claimed that he got a bomb threat that was directed at his house and workplace. Weiner claimed that the threat was made by MAGA conspiracy theorists who were hateful of LGBTXYZ ABC rainbow rights. The threat called him a pedo and a groomer, and he's since gone on a crusade against anyone who uses the term groomer. When asked about the threat, Weiner said, quote, "Tragically, I get a lot of death threats, and I have for several years. And they're now starting again with all of the right-wing attacks on me. This extremist homophobic rhetoric online has consequences, and sometimes people act. So it's just a really dangerous situation," end quote. I tried my best, y'all. I tried my best to see if anyone was ever arrested for making threats against him, but there were, sadly, no updates. Even though the news media reliably never followed up on this story, the whole thing was revealed to be a hoax. Weiner claimed he got the threats via voicemail on his iPhone and showed the transcript in a Twitter screenshot. Y'all, if you've ever seen a transcripted voicemail on iPhone, there's no cursor. There is no cursor. It ain't a Word document, like you're actively typing it out, which Weiner was in this screenshot. The boy who cried wolf. I personally think these legislators do far more harm to the people they claim they are protecting. Far more harm than any MAGA conspiracy theorist could ever dream of. All you need to do is just look at their fruit. As recently as this past week, bringing pornographers to the Capitol like they're some kind of great class of citizen who needs to be celebrated. Reducing the sentences for actual criminal activity towards civilians and children. Empowering sexual offenders. Yeah, all that gives the gay community a pretty bad rap when you're carrying their banner, Weiner. What do you think of this bill, internet friends? Sorry that I laughed all the way through this. I might cut out my laughter, but it's Joker laughter at this point because we're just watching the world burn. It's clown world, and every day gets more ridiculous, so I can't contain my laughter. Sorry about California. I think California is like one of the most beautiful states. I hate to see it crash and burn in such a way under the weight of Weiner and Gavin Newsom, George Soros, etc. We just laugh so we don't cry, okay? Let me know your thoughts. I always look forward to reading your comments. Thank you so much for watching, subscribing, supporting me on Patreon, and buying my book, The Deep State Encyclopedia. Bye.
What difference at this point does it make?
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Nope, no weapons over there.
We should not argue in the context of yesterday. We should really first analyze how the world has dramatically changed and is changing in an accelerating way.
I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Something that I'm breathing, telling me to sleep in. Fix behind my lids like nothing gets done. Living by a bad truth, swallow it like who knew. Marching to the drums like pa 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 pa. Sliding by the beaches, gotta have a secret. Life is plain peaches, tell nobody my secret. Drowning out the teaching, gotta have a secret. I'm just a fake silhouette, avoiding every threat. I wanna stay like a silhouette, but I can't do that. No, 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 I can't do that.